Thanks for joining us today on The Perfect X. My name is Sherry, and this is my co host Leigh.
Hello.
And today we are talking about online perceptions.
My favorite.
Leah, you're the fakest of them all.
Oh, this gets me going. This is up there with cock blockers.
Well, actually, I have something for you. Today I was swiping,
As
and
one
one,
does.
as one does on their daily morning coffee, with their daily morning coffee. Um, and the guy wrote, I don't have Instagram, but I'll share my HBO password with you. And I was like, well, I mean, if he's got a wife, he's either paying for two separate HBO
Yeah.
accounts.
That's legit. I'd let that slide.
Because I mean, I'm gonna create a profile in your HBO, so it depends on
Right.
how many girls are on that HBO account.
Yeah, no, I
So,
think that's a pass for sure.
right, right, I thought so too. I'm like, I mean, at the end of the day, even if he's paying for two HBOs,
Even
I
so,
mean,
yeah, he checks the other boxes, so you're good to go.
yeah, he's a baller. As long as it's not the commercial, as long as it's not the one with the commercials.
Just gotta see if he's got a after six cell phone plan or what.
After nine. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you know, like, yeah, I know you guys don't have Hulu, but we have Hulu here, and like now there's like two options. Like you can pay like $8 and have it with commercials, or 20 without commercials. So
Well, that's money well
it's like,
spent. I'd go
oh
no commercials all day. I'm even debating getting the YouTube no commercial thing.
my God, my girlfriend pays like $80 or something.
Is it really? Oh, I
Yeah,
thought
I
it
mean
was like
hers was.
that's wild. I still honestly I can't stand. Like I'm like, covered in grease up to my elbows. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how this thing's supposed to come apart. And then I'll like YouTube it. It's like, here's an ad for a vacuum. God damn it.
Oh, I don't. I think she had YouTube TV. I think that's actually separate than the no
Oh, it's like a
commercial
streaming
one.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
I just want like the no ads, like YouTube, regular YouTube app.
But I mean, I was just thinking to myself, like, that's a real way of knowing who's baller or not. Like, I mean, I got the commercial one.
Oh
So,
yeah, me too. I don't know anybody that's got it without, but I'm getting sick and tired of listening to the same old commercials.
no, I know it really is the same old. Like, it's so, I mean, I don't want, it's gone to the point where I'm like, do I have HIV? Because
Yeah.
ours is
Yeah.
mine is
Is my
constantly,
will in order? Yeah.
well, because mine is constantly that Truvecta or whatever it's called, the HIV one, and it's like
Yeah,
sometimes you're like, should I be on that? You're like,
yeah.
I'm not even sexually active or anything, but hey, right?
Maybe I
Like,
should. Yeah, yeah. I know it's
yeah.
crazy. I can't stand it, but I wouldn't mind. I'm gonna look into what it costs now. Now that you've got the ball rolling,
Well, yeah, look into it. If it's
you.
just regular YouTube, I'm sure it's not that much.
I wonder.
So, online perception, I mean, this is a great one because honestly, I actually get riled up with this too because, even when you're single, you kind of see like those, like, and it's so funny how easily you can be perceived one way. Like, I traveled a couple times last year to Europe,
Mm,
and even in that, my friends were like, "Oh, have you been in Europe the last few months?" It's like, no, if you actually look, those posts are like months apart. Like one was in May and the other one was in September.
right.
But the problem is like we just kind of can scroll and we can have a perception of someone and feel negative about ourselves. And it could be even a close friend, but usually it's someone you have absolutely no idea what's going on in their life.
Mm,
And it really gives us the wrong perception and makes us feel different. And if you're single, you feel like, oh, I wish I had that relationship. Look how happy they are because no one's posting their fights. You're not like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
or if you're, in a relationship and you see some single person living this jet setting life, you're like, oh, if I can just get rid of my boyfriend so I can do all this stuff. So
Yeah,
there's
I
just,
think it's just the nature of social media, though. You're not. There are people out there that are making it out to be better than it is, and then there's a lot of people. I think they just post the highlight stuff because that's the good stuff they're interested in. So it does probably come across as like one sided because, like you say, they're not posting the negative stuff typically, right? But then there's those people that try to create like a false persona as well, which that is what chaps me, right? Yeah.
well, I know a couple that they're very, very, I don't know them personally. I just
Hmm.
know of them and they're very influential. Like they're really big influencers. They're like one of the first people of Instagram influencers. Like even before I had Instagram, I knew who they were kind of thing.
Hmm.
And her husband, and they come off as a perfect marriage. And her husband, and I know this because I've matched and spoken with him, cheats on her online. And it
Oh, is
is
that right?
him. It is him because he pretends it's not him. And the moment you call out who he is, he you know, let me put it this way, English is not his first language. And then he pretends that he's from America. And then as he writes, you're like, oh no, you can't really write in English. And then when you speak
Yeah.
with him, it's him. Like, you know, and so there's like so many instances where it is him and it's not a fake picture. And this is before, like, this was on Plenty of Fish when I first saw him. So this wasn't on Tinder or anything. Like, he sent me a picture of him.
Yeah.
It wasn't like on Plenty of Fish, you can have a profile without a picture on there. So when he sent me a picture, I was like, wait a minute, I know who you are. And it wasn't from Instagram. I'd seen him on a show.
Oh,
And I
crazy.
was like, yeah. And I just watched the show. So I was like, at first I was like, who is this guy? But then I put two and two together. So it's people aren't always what you think. And a lot of times, like, you watch these reality shows and you see, or you see someone on Instagram and then they get divorced and we're left being shocked
Yeah.
because we had a whole different perception.
Well, there was a couple that happened to, and they're I think a lot of their whole thing was like happy marriage advice and this kind of nonsense, and then they ended up getting divorced. I think so that blows up like their whole brand, right? You know, so I think
Yeah,
they put it off going through that for a long time, and then when it came out, it was like, well, you know, that's kind of your whole mo is sort of, or your whole brand has been like just happy marriage and relationship advice and whatever, right? Which doesn't necessarily mean that their advice was bad, but like I think it probably screws with their whole brand, right?
I just think we're in a day and age where we need to be honest with our, our what we're putting out there. So if
Yeah.
you, I prefer like people who are like not constantly posting all happy stuff because the
Yeah.
reality is that's the world is not like that.
Hmm.
And so either don't post it or don't try to make yourself seem like you don't have to post your private stuff. If you're fighting, you need to post it, but you don't need to also only post perfection and come off only one way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No, but I don't think too many people buy that anymore. Like you do see those people out there still that pretend that everything's all whatever, but I think a lot of people know that it's life isn't that way, but it is hard for some people to look at social media and all you see is like other people's success stories, right? You know.
That's true. That is, it's really hard. I think we've never been so informed as a society, and actually sometimes that information can be unhealthy for us. Like, I
Yeah,
think
because
it's
it sets unrealistic expectations of reality, right? You know.
exactly. And I think the damage it does is when you're in a relationship, you start to be like, well, look at this couple online. Look how they are. Look what he does for her. Like, a lot of times, like, there are a lot of influencer women, like, all they're doing is posting the constant stuff that their supposedly rich husband is buying them. And, like,
Yeah.
it's all it is gift after gift after gift. And then homeboy is cheating left, right, and center. And then he's bankrupt 5 minutes later. And the
Yeah.
IRS are knocking on their door for $5 million. So it's not, and there's
No,
so
yeah.
many couples like that, like, especially like the influencer ones. And so I think it's really important that we kind of remind people that what you see is not what you get when it's
Well, these
online.
influencer types, like their brand is whatever it is. So it's like they're gonna play that up regardless of what's really going on, you know, but it's like real people that are kind of like creating a false sort of reality, you know, like that like we talked about this yesterday or last time we were on, but these people that things are shit in the background, but then they're like acting like things are all like great. I'm like, who is this to benefit? Like yourselves, or are you hoping that someone else sees this and thinks everything's great? Like I don't understand like why this is happening. Like you're obviously not happy. You're obviously there's things going on, but you're posting to the contrary. So is this like to benefit yourselves? Is this to convince someone else that things are great for you? Like what's the motivation, right? And
what what
that
is the
specifically is what
motivation?
gets up my ass about social media.
But what is the motivation? Like, to me, trying to carry on the bullshit would be so detrimental to my mental health.
Yeah,
So
and you
what is
see
the
it
motivation?
for an influencer, the motivation is to keep up the brand. For a normal person, like two regular people, what is your motivation? Like, so again, like I understand why an influencer would do it, but I don't understand why the everyday person with 300 followers or something is like compelled to act like everything's great and to benefit who? Like I don't understand why, so
I,
and
I
that's just something I see a lot of and I don't understand it.
I would, the only guess I would have is that some people, they need affirmation. And so if maybe I don't need my significant other to tell me everything is great, but having 20 of my followers saying, like, what a cute couple, everything is great,
Yeah.
means more to me than the person next to me, which is actually very sad.
Yeah.
Like, imagine like you caring more what 20 of your friends think that are just following you versus your own husband next to you, you know, like
Yeah.
that's what the only reason I would think that that would make sense, because they're just wanting acknowledgement and acceptance, and that's why they would post such a thing.
Yeah, like maybe their friends are all seemingly are in happy relationships, so they want to be perceived the same, right?
I also think that about filtering. You know, have you seen, like, what's that meme where it says, what are we supposed to, how are the police supposed to find you when you
Yeah.
look like Angelina Jolie online but like a
Oh
potato in
yeah.
real life?
I said that to a girl I know. I was like, "You're a pretty girl, but you don't look like that." You know what I mean? Like, why are you like, what the fuck? Like, I think I said to her, "What filter is that? All of them?" And then she fucking like smashed me. So I was like, "Okay, whatever, fuck you."
But it's kind of shocking. Like, why I don't understand why wanting to be given compliments for something you're actually not. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't I would mean more to me if someone said, "Oh, you have nice eyes," and they look like my eyes,
Right.
versus
Yeah. Yeah.
posting a photo and someone complimenting me for being something I'm not. They're not actually complimenting you. They're, you know, I always say the same thing as, like, when you pretend to be someone you're not and you make friends, you're not actually making friends. You're
Yeah.
making fake acquaintances, because a real friend will know every, like, not, they don't have to know everything, but they'll know things about you and accept you. But if you're always
Yeah.
wearing a mask,
I think there's some kind of I can't remember the word, but there's some sort of high people get out of the reassurance and things they get off social media that keeps them coming back and doing it. Like they're trying to look at those likes and those comments, and it like pumps them up somehow. It's just yeah, I'm not sure. It obviously doesn't do anything for me, but like I don't know why the motivation is. It must be like imagine there's probably a whole multitude of reasons, but I imagine it's like a self esteem thing. Like you get your ego pumped up a bit when people are commenting and liking your stuff, right?
but I like, it comes back to, are they liking you, or are they liking something you're not? You
And,
know,
and
like,
and that's I agree
like
100%, but I think that people don't understand the difference. They're like, as long as people are pumping me up, then all the better. They don't stop and think it's not me at all. You know, like
but it's like complimenting something and you accepting the compliment that's not even true. It's like if I went and bought food and packaged it, and then you're like, wow, you're a great cook, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
thank you, but I didn't even cook it. So am I actually getting a compliment? Should I feel better about myself for that? Like, it
I think
doesn't
normal people don't, but there's people out there that must, you
do.
know. But yeah, like the whole online persona in general with it started with Facebook and that kind of thing, but it's definitely I don't everyone has different reasons for posting what they post, but I think it's obvious when it's not good reasons. Like, if someone like yourself, you're going on a trip and you're just posting a couple highlights of the trip, that's normal. That's sort of what social media is for, is share the highlights, right? You're not going to, share the low points. So that makes sense. But if it's someone that is like having an issue and is pretending to not have that, it's like that's just unhealthy because I don't know what you're doing, but go address the issue, right? Don't be up here pretending it's not happening.
And then I think the other side of it is to remind ourselves never to measure ourselves based on someone else's social media. Because, and
Yeah.
I know I said this before, but I've always said this to my friends. Like, whenever I have a single friend, they're like, oh, that couple seems so happy, blah, blah, blah. I always say, and like they feel lonely, or like that day, like I had a girlfriend a while ago who was feeling really lonely, and she's like, well, everyone else seems to be in these really happy relationships, and she was like scrolling through this couple that we know, and I was like, but that's actually not, like, I know I didn't want to share the things I knew, but I know
Yeah.
that that couple isn't as happy. In fact, the guy is thinking of leaving, but they come off so happy in social media. And all I say to people when they start to judge themselves based on what they perceive someone else to be is, I say, and I Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were arm in arm in a vacation, and the paparazzi were taking photos, and he left her the next day. Like, you just don't fucking know. Like,
Yeah.
like, they used to say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but actually, the reality nowadays, a picture is worth nothing. Like,
Yes.
absolutely
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
And it's so unhealthy to measure ourselves. It's so unhealthy to, define where we are in life and judge ourselves where we are in life, or perceive if we're good enough based on someone else's social media.
Yeah, and it's not good. I think a lot of people like don't care what other people are doing. Like I don't think you or I really judge, ourselves against other people. Like I think we're both fairly secure people that are like, yeah, I'm just doing what I'm doing. But I'm sure there are people out there that think, oh man, like, I can't get a boyfriend, I can't get a girlfriend, or people that have trouble getting pregnant and they're seeing all their friends getting pregnant. I can't imagine like the stress for
I,
some people, right?
Even like I'm pretty secure too, but I think we all have moments. Like, I even had moments. I can tell you of a time where, like, I was when patience, my dog, for anyone who's not listening, when he got his leg amputated, and towards the last few weeks, I only wanted to stay at home with him. And so I was at home with him all day long because he couldn't walk, he couldn't do anything. And my friends were over all the time. I was so lucky for that. Like my best friend lived next door and upstairs, the other one, like, you
Yeah.
know, they were always over with me. But like there were I couldn't sleep, you know, like I wasn't doing anything. I was really like just staying at home watching my dog die. And then I remember being online a lot and being like, wow, like people my age are traveling and doing all these things. And then I started being like really low on myself. I'm like, what am I gonna do when he's done? I have like nothing. And like, you know, all these things. And then what's so funny is after he passed and like I grieved, I was like, took me a long time to grieve that one.
Yeah.
But when I started getting my like self back together a year later, it really took me a year. I
Hmm.
started to realize like the reality is those people that I felt like they had all their shit together and I had nothing, they didn't. But in my
Yeah.
lowest point, I felt so far behind and so alone. Like I was like everybody else invested their life in a relationship and I invested my life in my dog and he's dying, you know? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
I feel like we can all have moments like that. And then you start to scroll and you start to perceive things. And then when you get back to a healthy point, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like that, I was judging myself so much and feeling so low and so alone.
Yeah.
When the reality is, you know, I mean, the reality is most of the people, like there was a documentary I watched a while ago and like someone one of the guys on the documentary, he posted like he was a millionaire and he had all these friends or whatever. And he's like, I'm the loneliest fucking person. And he was like living in his car. Like, I can't remember the
Wow.
whole details, but he was like poor as fuck. And like, it wasn't perceived that way online, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
I,
think social media and is like it reminds me of like alcohol and other things that are like okay in moderation, you know. But if you find yourself in a situation or a mental state where like you were, where you're finding these things are dragging you down, like other people doing whatever they're doing isn't pushing you in the right direction, it might be a good idea to take a step away from social media for a bit, you know, like, and the reason I bring up the alcohol thing is I'm like, some people can drink and it's not a problem. And other people, it leads to the other problems. Like, you know, they get
depressed.
emotional or depressed or whatever. And so it's like, you know what, stay away from that stuff. It's not for you. And there's nothing wrong with alcohol. There's nothing wrong with social media, but if it's not serving you at that time, you could do well to step away from it for a bit. Right.
That's exactly it. If it's not serving you at the time, that's exactly it. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
every time, sometimes things are good enough and you just have to make a few changes and get yourself at a better point. But then exactly like being online all day or drinking when you're like kind of not in the best mental state can't always be the best outcome for you. It's not going to
Yeah.
serve you. And
Yeah,
so
and there's
yeah,
times I've deleted social media for a few months and just been like, you know, I don't need this. Like, it's just not doing. I'm wasting time on there, and I'm not doing anything productive. It's just a time suck. I don't really need it, you know. And I'll delete it for 3 or 4 months. I'm just, I don't need it, you know. But I think it's all about where you're at. You know, if you're in a good place, and you know other people just curious, like you moved away, so it's a good way to stay in touch, see what other people are up to, and you know, and it serves you right, you know, in that sense, you know. So it's good to have in that sense. But then if you find that it's just dragging you down for a bit, there's no harm in booting it off for a while, right?
exactly, exactly. And I think things that could really drag a person down is when you start comparing. Like I see it when my friends in a relationship start comparing other people in relationships and exactly like what their boyfriend or girlfriend's doing and
Yeah.
based on that. Or when my single friends are like, oh well, I'm not living the proper single life. This single person's doing better, or this person's in a relationship and I feel lonelier. I think when you start to get into the point where you're comparing and soaking the information in a negative way is when you really have to take a step back and just be like, this isn't reality and it's not helping me find a better place for myself. It's just making me judge myself, compare myself, and feel less than. I
Yeah.
think that's when you really have to remember. And you know what's
Yeah.
really interesting? I mean, I live in LA and it's one thing I had to learn out here, but I also think too, like, you know, like for instance, when people come to LA, they'll see like someone driving a really nice car. And actually it's
Mhm.
the same in Vancouver. But like there's a Persian saying and it says like just the Ali Jiba Khali, which means like perfect image but empty pockets, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, you know, like just because someone has a nice car, they could be like living at home and like at 40 and like barely making ends meet. Like it means nothing. And that
Yeah.
is just the same as someone's social media. Like they could look like they're traveling everywhere, but they're really barely making ends meet. And like God knows how they're affording it. They could be in debt. They could be putting a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff on credit cards. Like you can't perceive what you view as someone's image.
Or is the truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are doing things like, living on credit cards or doing whatever. And yeah, you just gotta take that all of it with a grain of salt. Be like, like that's good for them. And I find, I'm in a spot now where like I don't feel that someone's success is like is like my failure. Like they're getting something, therefore I can't get it. You know what I mean? It's like I do genuinely think I'm happy for people that are doing well. I've never looked at people like they don't deserve that, and why don't I have that? Like I tend to find myself like honestly thinking like happy about other people's happiness. I'm like, it doesn't take away from my happiness, so I shouldn't be upset that they're getting what they want. So I find that's just maybe comes with age or something, or being happy with what you have.
I think it comes more with being happy with what you have because it goes back to what like when I was at my lowest point when I was losing my dog. And because I never wanted kids. Like to me, that Rottweiler was all I ever wanted. And so
Yeah.
that was my lowest of who I was, and I've never compared my life. I've always believed exactly like your life is not parallel to someone else's. Like if someone else goes and works hard, becomes a millionaire, it doesn't make my life better or worse. I have to find my own way to get to my own successes, whatever I view as successful.
Yeah.
A healthy, happy life, whatever that is. And so, but when you're at a really low point, like I know, like for me, I was emotionally so drained. Like I couldn't help him. He was dying. I felt less than because I couldn't help him. There was nothing I could do for him. So I was already feeling shitty. And then you start to compare it. But so it really is exactly what you say. Like you're at a good, healthy place, happy place in your life. So you're not comparing and you're just appreciating other people around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think people really need to take that and kind of really think about when they should and shouldn't be online for those reasons.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I think too. I think it's just, yeah, if you, as long as it's not detrimental to your well-being, then it's fine.
And when it comes to like dating online too, like a lot of my friends give their Instagram, and I used to do like when I had Facebook, I would share my Facebook, and then I was like, oh, I don't want people having my last name before you meet them. And like part of you also does want to, because exactly like you said, like if someone doesn't have Instagram, you're like, oh, are they like it's a little sketch
Mhm.
before meeting when you're online. But at the same time, it's like how much of your life do you want to share with someone before meeting because maybe you don't want to further communicate with them,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a very soft, like it's a that line is very soft. You're like, how like do I want this person to see too much? Do I want to know too much, or do I want to meet them first and then decide? But I do have friends that share their Instagram and they're like, oh, I don't care, I'll just whatever. And there are times where like I have seen a guy's Instagram and he looks like he's like the best thing. Like he has his life together. He
Yeah.
travels all over the world. He's financially secure. He's got a great family. And then you get to meet him and you get to know him and the layers start to come off and you're like, oh, this person like has a lot of fucking emotional issues, you know,
Yeah.
exactly like lives off credit cards, has a lot of debt, like he isn't at all what he like shows people. And so it even comes to that, like when you're dating, because you can attach your Instagram to like Bumble and stuff, right?
Why would I know that?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Why would you? Well, you can. So it really means nothing. Like you get to a point where it's like I don't even bother asking people anymore because it's like I don't care what you have on your Instagram because you may not be at all that person you pretend to be.
Yeah, it's just part of the persona, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so it kind of comes down like, you're like, oh, like if a guy doesn't have it, sometimes I like a guy not to be actively on social media.
Yeah, there's definitely an upside I could see, but I was totally banging the drum of like your sketch bag if you don't have social media, and I agree to a point. I do think that's all of the stories I've heard. There was another one I was going to share with you yesterday, but I didn't bother. But it's you've probably heard it, but it's a similar sort of like to that Dirty John theme. You know what I mean? Like the guy's just elusive and doesn't really have many friends and like much going on, like no social media, and it's like it doesn't prove anything. But I definitely, the people that were up to no good did not have social media typically, right? But like you say, it's just as easy to create like a fake persona on there with all sorts of you know stuff that seems like you're doing well, right?
Who was this? What was the story? You want to share it or?
Yeah, it's nobody I know, and it might just be a made up story. But I was listening to the radio. I mean, this is a long time ago. I was probably, I I'm driving around for work. Man, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was quite a while ago, and someone called in and said this was the story. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how true it is or if it's a story that's been going around forever. But the long and short of it essentially was a girl was dating a guy and started a new job and then met some people and added them to Facebook. And then one of the girls she added to Facebook was like married to this guy she was dating. And like, she didn't know like the guy had a significant other or anything. And he had like a full on life, with this woman. He was married, had kids, everything, and was just hiding it all. It wasn't on social media. And then she just happened across his wife because they ended up working together somewhere. And then they had added each other on social media. And then this wife's photos on her profile are with this girl's boyfriend. And she's like, how do you know that guy? And it's like, oh, that's my husband. Been married for like 10 years. Right. And she was dating. So the person that phoned this story in, I believe she was friends with this girl this happened to.
Yeah.
So they were talking about similar to what we're talking about now on the radio. And this girl phoned in with the story. So, oh, this happened to my friend. So maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I'm sure there's 1,000 stories like that out there.
It happens. And you know what's kind of crazy? Like when I find people, like one of the guys that I later found out was married when I matched with him online. And then like I found out a couple years later, I had a feeling. And so I just stopped talking to him and he kept pursuing me and I stopped like
Yeah.
connecting with him. And then I end up making friends with his um, cousin wife randomly. And I don't know
Oh,
what perceived me, what made me like I went to something called like the Hollywood Bowl in LA, and I have a friend who has tickets like right up front. And he invites every once in a while, like a few of us. And there's a couple that he has that is a friend that's a couple that I absolutely love the wife. We get along. So I love her husband too. But like at the moment I see the wife, it's like, like honey and a bee. Like I fucking love her. And
yeah.
so the first time I met her, I don't know what it was that I was like, I hung out with this guy and I started telling her the story. Like this was like 2 years after I met the guy. And then
Wow.
she's like, this sounds like my husband's cousin that he's not very close with, blah, blah, blah. And then she shows me a picture and I was like, oh my God. She's like, he's married, like all. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like the balls of this guy, and
Yeah.
then I saw him online after on Bumble and I swiped right just to match with him and we matched. I said, how do you have the balls to just have your photo out there? Like
Yeah.
you're married and your family lives all around this area. Like
Yeah.
she couldn't believe. She's like, what do you mean your picture was just on Bumble? I was like, yeah, he's openly out there. Like he wasn't hiding. Like there was no, like when I matched with that famous guy on Plenty of Fish, he sent me his photo, like I didn't have, like you used to be able to hide your photos. But
Right.
on
Okay.
this
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
on Bumble, his photo's right out there. I'm like, aren't you worried about her friends or them finding out? And he's like, that's like on her. Like he didn't give a fuck. Like some people
That's
genuinely,
insane.
I still think so too. And then
Like,
he
why are you with somebody if you're just like blatantly just
cheating.
openly dating? Like you're literally just out there dating, right?
And he's like, if someone has the balls to go and tell her, then they have an issue. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's not the issue. The issue is you being online. He's like,
That guy's
everyone,
just what's the word? He's just a sociopath or something, right?
yeah, he couldn't believe. He's like, if anyone tells her, they have real issues because they can't accept the fact that men cheat. I was like, not all men cheat. He's like, yeah,
What a
they
turd.
do. Oh my God. It was like, it's on them, it's on her. Whoever tells her, it's on her. Blah, blah, blah. I
That's
was
just
like,
that behavior. We're taking no responsibility for his own actions, and those
yes.
people are out there. But yeah, they're the kind of person that would drink and drive and think it's your fault for getting in their way, right?
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. The balls, the
Clowns. Yeah.
entitlement. Yeah,
The
that's so
balls,
true.
though, man, like that, and his chick probably who doesn't have the balls to stand up to him either. Like he'd probably get caught and she'd just shrug it off.
Well, it's funny because I asked him, I was like, how is your relationship with your cousin? He's like, honestly, I hate being around them. Like, it's a fucked up relation. They don't, like, they hadn't
Yeah,
seen them. The last time they saw them was at their wedding, and they had been married for like years by then. So, I mean, they weren't that close anymore. But
yeah.
people are entitled. Actually, it's funny you say, because actually, I was going to bring this up, and I forgot. I matched with someone the other day too, and I was like, oh my God, I have to tell Leigh, like people are very entitled, and I think being online gives them a little bit more balls because exactly like this guy was like, I dare someone to go tell my wife, like if that person sees me online.
That's
And I
crazy.
also find that people like they're ballsier online and they're ruder online. Like this guy, I matched with this guy and I wasn't really into him. Like he sent me a like, I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure if I did or whatever on Hinge, like you can send the person a like. He wasn't really my type. And then he,
Yeah.
like, one of the messages in goes, tell me something you would never tell anybody else. And I said, why would I tell a perfect stranger one of my deepest, darkest secrets?
Yeah.
And then I said, what do you do for work? And he said, that's pretty private. Why would I tell you? And I said, so I'm supposed to tell you my most private, intimate, like, four messages. And I don't even think we had four messages. I think we had like two messages in. He's telling me, tell me your deepest, darkest secret. And he also said, this conversation's getting boring. And I was like, yeah, because you're trying to get dirt on me. But homeboy can't even tell me what he does for a job.
Well, yeah,
Like,
I mean, you could at least be like, oh, I'm in, engineering or
marketing. And
whatever,
yeah,
marketing. Like, you wouldn't have to like get specifics. And I don't think people expect specifics, but like, you can just say like, I'm in this part of the market. I'm doing this or that. Like, but someone like that's just like fucking weird.
the
Like,
entitlement,
so you
like,
don't have a job is what you're saying. Yeah.
well, and then he's like, I sold my company. It's pretty private. But I was like, okay, so it's private for what you do for a career. But me, I should tell you my deepest, darkest, most private secret to some fucking random. I don't even know his last name. But
Yeah, what a jerk off.
that's
A
on.
normal person would be like, yeah, I started a company that in software and then I sold it. So I guess technically I'm retired. You know what I mean? Like you'd leave it at that. You wouldn't have to be like a twit about it, right?
Exactly, exactly. But I just thought it was a level of entitlement. Like, you go into my life, but
But they're not going to tell you anything. Yeah.
nothing.
Fuck that. Yeah. At least you can weed out some of the red flags early on.
And I'm such an asshole. Like, I'll always say something back and then something assholeish back. And then I wait till I see them start replying and then I unfollow them. So I'm like, I never give them a chance to, like, get the, because that pisses people off more. And I always take it so fucking low. I've gotten a lot better, but I can go so fucking low. Like, I could say some of the nastiest shit. I think I told him something like, I don't remember. I said something like your looks or whatever. I don't remember. But I
Nice.
get really fucking dirty. Like, and then I wait until the bubble starts coming up. I'm typing and I'm like, unfollow. So I get my 2 cents in. Like, but you don't get to say
That
anything back. So
guy
yeah.
sounds like a fucking organ donor, anyways.
Organ donor.
Oh,
I
it
don't
just
know what
means
they
like
do.
they're not good for anything except that,
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, I love that. I was like, wait, an organ donor is a good person.
No, yeah, no. We usually just it's kind of an expression around town here. Just like, yeah, like that guy's just a stump. He's just good for nothing, right? Just harvest organs, move on. you know?
Wait, there was a lot of those online. I mean, there was one a couple years ago. I think it was a couple years ago. But these guys do this thing where they keep messaging, you ignore, you don't even open the app. Like, I won't open the app for months. And this one guy had written like 5 messages, and his last one said, "Answer me, bitch." And I was like, oh.
Whoa.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna give it an answer. And I fucking ripped into this guy. And then we had some back and forth. And to be honest with you, I had just done it was like a year ago now, actually, because I had just done like a peel for my face, like literally peels the layer of your skin off. So I had
Jesus.
to be home for like 10 days. I couldn't do anything. I was like literally shedding like a snake.
Where do you come
Um,
up with this shit?
I had to do it. I got one of those facial lasers done, and the girl burnt my whole face, and I had marks all over my face. And so the only way to get this off now was to peel the layer of my skin off, and
Wow.
the marks are still there. Anyways, but so I was home, and so he just happened to. I had all the time in the world to answer him, so
Sucks for him, yeah.
I fucking lit into him like you will not believe. And like he kept saying something back and I kept saying something back. And the thing is, I can do this stuff in such a comfortable level. Like, it doesn't even get emotional to me because I don't really give a fuck what he thinks. I don't know him.
Yeah.
So I just got so down and dirty, and I'm still relaxed, like eating and like so happy and like,
I just
yeah.
wonder, is there trolls on there? Like people are just bored, like starting arguments?
I don't know about that a lot, but it's very easy to get argumentative online because it's so easy. I think people are very vulnerable just being on there anyways. So it's so
Yeah.
easy to offend someone and people take it far.
Oh,
That
interesting.
happens a lot. But one thing I do see a lot of is people must be passing their time a lot on there. And I don't see it on the guy side so much, but I do hear it from even guys I match with, and people have it on their profile where they say, if you don't want to meet up, don't message me. So it
I see.
seems like a lot of people pass the time by just being online with no
They just want a
intention.
pen pal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
no intentions to meet. I really don't see it on the guy side. Most guys do want to meet. I've only one guy in the last 10 years. I know this guy was like and his messages were fun. He was a fun guy, but he was just
Hmm.
messaging nonstop all day, every day. I had to stop answering because he, in after like 3 days, he hadn't asked me to hang out, and we were having good convo, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like,
I
well, I'm not looking for
some guys
contact.
can't string a sentence together. I don't know how they get on there and start chat. I mean, you must run into guys that just can barely fucking type.
Yeah, and you
I
just,
can't
like,
stand that.
yeah, and you just like don't want to carry the convo, or like I have like I recently matched with this guy who was just oversharing his entire life way too much. Like he
Yeah.
was like telling me all his sorrows, and it's like, well, I'm also not your counselor. Like
You're like,
this
this is a
is,
turn off. Yeah. You know.
yeah, yeah, this is. I mean, I went on a date with a guy recently who was like literally thought I was his like therapist. You know, like I
Yeah.
wasn't. It's
Some
just
people
people
are
forget.
are the opposite. They're like too honest. Like they don't have a filter. You know what I mean? Like, like it's
I think
important
it's
to
so.
be upfront, but then don't create this like fake persona. But like, like there is some stuff you could maybe hold back a little bit, right?
I think it's okay to share, but I think you also have to remember this is online, and we aren't available to be your therapist. Like it's not, what is that, Better Health or whatever it's called, like that online therapy. Like this is a dating app. Like this, or like a lot of guys will say like, what are you looking for? And I'm like, this isn't LinkedIn. Like
Yeah,
this is,
yeah, yeah.
I'm on here.
I'm
Like
open
this
to new
app.
opportunities.
Yeah, like this is, although I have met some guys for work opportunities on there, but like the reality is this is a dating app. Like you're on there to either date or long term, short term, but it's a dating app. Like I'm not here to solve your family problems or, you know, be there for you emotionally. Like I'm here for, you know, to meet somebody. So
Yeah.
whether it's for like a date or years or whatever, the point is to go on actual dates. So
I have that with some friends where like I feel like I have to like distance myself because I'm like there's it's not deliberate, but they're like take with the energy, It's like I understand you've got shit going on and work sucks and whatever. And I'm supportive as a friend. Like I get it, but like some people, it's like you almost have to distance yourself because you find like they're just an energy suck.
and those people are online dating.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. Like, cause I, even friends I care about, sometimes I've got to like pump the brakes a little bit. So I can't imagine like someone I've never even met. And it's hard. You're like, oh, that sucks. Sorry to hear that. But at the end of the day, you're like, I only have so much energy to give and I can't be giving it away to a stranger. Right.
I know this girl, and it's kind of interesting because like she's one of those people that if you're having a bad day, she always has to have a worse day. If something happens to you, she's always had to, like she
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
actually is one of those people. And what's really funny is she matched with this guy online, and they he lived in a different state,
Mhm.
and they have very, like they're both very 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 religious, and they
Did he
were
fly out there
opposite.
to live with her before meeting her? That would be smart.
Yeah, I know who fucking does that, right?
Who indeed?
Um, but he comes out to LA to visit her. They're both very very into their religion, like very
Mhm.
much so, and they're very religious people. And they were like arguing about their religion before like meeting, and I was like, dude, like why don't you guys just meet first? Like maybe you won't even like him when you meet him. And but what was really interesting is after like they realized it wasn't going to work out for them, she was like, oh, he's going to find someone else right away. And I was like, dude, where? Like no girl is going to sit there. Like he would call her every day, and just they would talk about their problems, both of them.
Mhm.
One would have it worse than the other, and like she would tell me their conversations, and I'm like, these conversations sound like literally hell to me. Like not one time are either one of you guys saying one positive thing. Like he says this happened to me, you say this happened to me. He says that the world is so evil, you say the world is so evil. Like there
Yeah.
was, like, like everyone has a bad moment, but usually you want someone else to lift you up.
Yeah.
But I told him like he's got nowhere to go. Like one of you should just convert and get together, because I can't imagine who's going to tolerate either one of you.
I
Like
used to have trouble with that, like breaking that negative cycle. Like it's easy to find things to be pissy about, but like I've only in recent years learned to like vent a bit and then move on. Like don't sit in it. Like just get it off your chest a little bit, do what you got to do, but then pick up the pieces and move on. Like I used to just sit in it for hours or days and just be miserable. And
it's
you know,
it's okay to sit in it, but I always tell people don't complain if you're not looking for a solution, at least to me. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going to sit there just to make you feel satisfied that you feel, or like validate your shitty feeling. Like I'm
Because
not,
it's
I'm
so
someone who's
draining.
going to find us. Well, I want to find a solution. Like if you come to me and you're complaining, let's find a solution.
Yeah.
But if you're coming to me to complain and me just continuously validating your feelings, I'm not for it. Like if
No.
you have an issue with your like neighbor and you're constantly complaining, but you're never looking for a solution, whether it's like talking to management, talking to them. If there's no solution finding in this, then don't come to me.
Yeah. Have you
Because
seen that thing? It's like, it's something to like a meme, like, are you asking me for a solution, or you just want to vent type of thing, right? And it's like that's men. Typically, men are always trying to fix, and women are just trying to vent. And it's so I think it's like a relationship sort of thing. But it's like, yeah, like, do you want a solution, or do you just want to blow off steam for like 10 minutes, right?
and it's okay for 10 minutes, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
don't, if that's your cycle, don't come to me.
Because we do
But
that at work. Like some of the kids I work with, like they will blow off steam for a few minutes, but they'll always end it with like, this place has its flaws, but it's still a great place to work. I'm happy here. I'm just blowing off steam. Like, no, I get it. I'm with you. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't trade it for anything either, but it's not without its flaws. But like we're all at the end of the day, nothing is, and it's cool to have people like that around, so you can bitch a little bit about one thing or another. But then we're like, you know what though, at the end of the day, fuck it, it's all good, right? You know what I mean? So
you
those
have
kind
to
of
move
people are
on.
cool, right? You get 5 or 10 minutes of kind of chin wagging, and you're like, ah, fuck, and then you just, then you just pick up your socks and get on with it, right?
Yeah, perfect. I so agree with you. Like a 10-minute vent. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So we next week we'll talk about well, like what you notice first in the opposite sex look wise, which I know you've only looked at your wife, but
Yes.
we'll talk about guys' perception, what you think that they notice,
Yes.
just kind of a topic. And then just your favorite thing to do, round out what we talked about, is really just don't take what you see online as everything, and don't try to compare your relationship or your single life to it.
Yes, absolutely. Just take it with a pinch of salt, because it's just kind of the highlight reel.
Or entertainment, because that's all it is.
That's good too.
Just
Yeah, lots of
just
entertainment on there.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, I will talk to you next week.
Yeah, you bet.
Bye.
See ya.